Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Trinidad and Tobago continues to fare at an average rating in the Global Competitive Index. The Finance Minister says structural reform is essential to this country's financial growth and future. And an exclusive interview with the Minister in the Ministry of Works on the sinkhole situation which inconvenienced thousands of citizens. Thank you for joining us. In less than 24 hours, the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure was able to repair the major sinkhole on the westbound lane of the Beetham Highway, allowing commuters who were stuck in traffic for hours to finally be on their way to the capital city and its environs. News 4 met with the Minister in the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, Stacey Roopnarine, in an exclusive interview where she was able to give some details on the situation which inconvenienced thousands of citizens.
The nightmare which haunted thousands of commuters who spent hours stuck in traffic this morning as they attempted to enter the capital city and its environs. This as a portion of the westbound lane of the Beetham Highway in Sealots suddenly collapsed around midday on Wednesday, causing a massive traffic gridlock. A sinkhole measuring approximately 6 feet was left, forcing the two northernmost lanes of the westbound highway to be blocked, enabling cars to avoid the sinkhole. Police officers and officials from the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure were the first to arrive on the scene. Works Minister Emmanuel George, Minister in the Ministry of Works Stacey Roopnarine, and Roger Ganesh, the Director of Highways in the Ministry of Works, arrived soon after. Meanwhile, speaking exclusively with News 4 was Minister Stacey Roopnarine, who says work has been ongoing all night long to ensure the inconvenience did not persist much longer.
Yesterday, just after 1 p.m., Minister George would have received a call indicating that there was a collapse, and so we immediately went out. The police were already there. We had WASA on site. The technocrats from the ministry were there, and we worked round the clock. They worked for the entire night to ensure that we were able to at least restore the base, the culvert itself, and to allow traffic to flow on it.
The sheets of steel were this morning being removed as the concrete structure had dried, now being able to withstand the usual heavy flow of traffic on the busy Beetham westbound highway. Police officers were on site as workers from the ministry were seen busily clearing the roadway with heavy machinery, while some even resorted to the shovel in a bid to relieve the tremendous traffic backlog. Minister Roopnarine explained that while investigations are still ongoing to determine what may have triggered the incident, a collapsed culvert, she says, seems to be the reason thus far. She also explained how the situation was being rectified.
We had a collapsed culvert under the road. So that culvert had collapsed, and basically that led to the hole in the middle of the road. We are investigating further as to perhaps some of the causes that may have caused the actual culvert itself to collapse, and those investigations are still ongoing. We have replaced the culvert crossing, and we have done the concrete works. So that has been completed, and the concrete now has to set. So we have put steel on top of the concrete to allow vehicular traffic to pass into Port of Spain. What we plan to do is tonight again, from approximately 9 p.m., we will undertake the paving works. So that will be done from around 9 p.m. to maybe around 2 a.m. in the morning, and we are doing it tonight in order to minimize the inconvenience to commuters.
The priority bus route was last night and today open to the public to facilitate motorists. Our cameras met with some distressed commuters who were still able to applaud government for attempting to alleviate the traffic situation by opening up the bus route to the public.
Yesterday it took me like 2 hours coming down the Lady Young because the information that we got from work was like really late. A few of us used it because we got the information over the radio stating that you could use it until you reach like up to Mount Hope.
It was a good initiative. At least they gave us another option to use the bus route as the traffic.
That is a fantastic idea. In fact, they should do that. They really should do that. I mean, everybody is running late.
Veena Bharath, News 4.
More news after the break. Stay with us. Trinidad and Tobago continues to fare at an average rating in the Global Competitive Index. The results were released by the Arthur Lockjack School of Business, according to a survey conducted by the World Economic Forum.
Trinidad and Tobago continues to maintain an average competitive index on the global scale. This as the Arthur Lockjack School of Business revealed the results of this year's Global Competitiveness Report. However, while the annual ranking is based on the Global Economic Index developed by the World Economic Forum, rankings are calculated using publicly available data and an executive opinion survey. In explaining the report, Senator Dr. Rolf Balgobin says Trinidad and Tobago's position on the report gives an indication of this country's strengths and what it needs to do in order to increase its competitiveness.
Innovation and productivity are becoming very important for the development and maintenance of our standard of living. Having said that, it is important to note that our score has not moved for 3 years. That is, we're scoring on average 4 out of 7. 4 out of 7 is generally viewed as average in all of the competitiveness results that we've had for the last 5 years or so. And so we're very firmly positioned in the middle. And a little later on, we'll ask and address the question, we may be in the middle, but which direction are we going in?
The survey adds that Trinidad and Tobago continues to satisfy basic requirements, especially in the provision of macroeconomic environment suitable for investors.
In terms of institutions, investor protection, we do very well. Judicial independence also ranks very well. We rank 47 out of 144 countries.
The revealing of results saw a panel of experts in the financial and investor sector gather over discussions based on the survey. One of the panelists, Dave Ramkisoon, notes that Trinidad and Tobago continues to produce world-class businesses that are able to compete against some of the largest international manufacturers.
A company like AIL or even SMG, if you come into our organization and see the kind of infrastructure that we are building, from leadership, to people, to culture, to innovation, to alignment, to technology, all these things are integral things that we work with to build a kind of what you call intelligence. So when we go out into these developed countries, we could look at them in the eyes, to be quite honest. That's what it is, it's looking at them in the eyes. So we are a company that has BASEC. We manufacture products that we could take into England, into Europe. Our products go into Canada because we have CUL.
Meanwhile, Dr. Thackeray Driver, chairman of the Economic Development Board, highlights the pivotal role developments in the recently concluded deepwater exploration bids will play in attracting investors.
A good example yesterday of how actually you can turn things around with the right government action. This is for upstream deepwater energy. 2006, we put out 11 blocks for bid, and we got one bid which was then withdrawn. Yesterday they closed, there were 6 blocks out, we had 12 bids in it, because we did it differently, because we changed the fiscal terms, because we got better data to the companies, and we went out and marketed aggressively. So if we do that with every sector, we can do it in energy because we know how to do it. We've got to do the same lessons applied to other sectors, and we'll be able to attract the investments into them. We can turn things around.
This year's ranking also saw Trinidad and Tobago place relatively well in its provision of investor protection at 24 out of 144 countries and at 15 at our gross national savings when compared to our global counterparts. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
In related news, Finance Minister the Honourable Larry Hawai says structural reform is essential to this country's financial growth and future. His comments come following a meeting with CARICOM partners at a forum hosted by the International Monetary Fund on low growth and high debt in the Caribbean.
Fresh from a 2-day IMF conference with regional financial heads on lowering debt and fiscal policy, Finance Minister Larry Hawai is further predicting a stimulus budget through the available fiscal space and new policies aimed at supporting growth. His comments come following high-level discussions on ways of improving the local economy.
There seems to be a general consensus that one has to do both. both address the issues of reform as well as deal with the issues of how do you stimulate growth and how do you restructure your economies to meet the new competitive requirements of the new global economic order.
He adds that the conference has given Trinidad and Tobago confidence to move forward into the financial future.
We feel certainly more confident that the direction that we're taking and the course of action which we are proposing to take over the coming years are in line with the general thinking of the fund and of people generally who have been looking at and studying this particular issue in the context of the current global environment.
Meanwhile, Associate Director of the Western Hemisphere Department at the IMF, Saul Elizondo, says the conference provided some of the basic suggestions for improving competitiveness in the region.
Policies that improve competitiveness and structural reforms are likely to be needed to get growth going at a solid rate again.
Caribbean countries coming out of the forum not only saw the exchange of views on developing small state economies, but an analytical overview of how a collaborative approach can be beneficial to the region. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
In other news, Minister of Health, Dr. the Honorable Fuad Khan, has toured the building being constructed to house the San Fernando Hospital Administration Complex. The complex, when completed, will increase the hospital's inpatient capacity by almost 50%.
Dr. Khan is promising that the San Fernando General Hospital will see upgrades when construction of the San Fernando Hospital Administration Complex is complete and the building becomes operational. Dr. Khan toured the building recently and got a first-hand view of exactly what the facility looks like and how its layout is to be structured. He commends the state-owned Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, UDECOT, for their efforts in ensuring that the project is delivered on time and within budget. He adds that the administration complex, which is costing the government an estimated $760 million, should be completed before the end of this year.
We've passed through one floor that has been almost completed, and all the other floors will be completed at 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're now on floor 4. This is the 4th floor. Now you're seeing what is being delivered, and I want to commend UDECOT for it. So this is what it's going to be like at all levels. We should be able to get the 3, 4, 5, and 6 for end of November delivered, and I do hope that does occur. So I just came to have an update on what is available at this point in time.
The health minister explains that the complex will provide an additional 250 beds for patients. This will complement the 600 beds currently available at the San Fernando General Hospital. He explains that the facility will ease the strain placed upon the hospital and allow for upgrades to be done on the almost 60-year-old building.
It's going to be compatible and assisting, with the clinics. So what we will do at San Fernando Hospital is upgrade San Fernando Hospital when we move the clinics across here to make it, as I say, at the same level.
Minister Khan also reveals that work has begun on the Couva Children's Hospital. He says the contractor has been brought on board, but warns construction will only begin when all plans are in place and all paperwork completed.
Well, the thing about it, construction starts by planning, not just actual building. Construction, you have the pre-construction, which is the planning part of it, and that's being done right now. When you want to put stakes in the ground, that all the planning has to take place, the financing has to take place, and you have to be really ready before you put the stakes in the ground.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
4 continues after the break. The highly anticipated 2012 season of the Secondary Schools Football League will kick off on Friday at venues nationwide. Last year was an exceptional one for multi-time champions St. Anthony's College, as they registered an amazing 19-0 record to capture all major titles and remain unbeaten. Wayne Cunningham has a schedule for the champions as well as all the games on opening day.
St. Anthony's College set a Secondary Schools Football League record in 2011 by going unbeaten for the entire campaign. The West Moorings Tigers swept away all in their part last season on the way to compiling a 19-0 record, which on their way earned them the North Zone, Secondary Schools Football League and Intercol titles. And this year, it looks ominous for their opponents as coach Nigel Grosvenor has some key members of the championship team at his disposal for 2012, which include outstanding defender Jamali Garcia, as well as Dean Corbin, who has featured prominently in the setup of pro outfit San Juan Jablote. To further compound matters for the rest of the league, St. Anthony's will now have the services of national under-20 player Xavier Rajpal, who has qualified to do A-levels and transferred from Fatima College during the August vacation. Despite being comfortable in what he terms a rebuilding year, Coach Grosvenor told News 4 Sports that he is wary of all comers for his first challenge, which is recapturing the North Zone Secondary Schools Football League crown. St. Anthony's will face their first hurdle when they meet Queen's Royal College on Friday at the Hazley Crawford Stadium at 5 p.m. Before that match, Mukarabo East Secondary will come up against Fatima College at 3 p.m. Down in the south, Shiva Boys will seek to continue their impressive showing from 2011 when they meet Pleasantville Secondary at the Manny Ramjohn Stadium in Marabella from 3 p.m. Then at 5, a long-time rivalry will resume as Presentation College do battle with Naparima College for early bragging rights down in the industrial capital. While in the east, the Mean Green Machine that is St. Augustine Secondary will begin its campaign versus Arima North Secondary at the Larry Gomes Stadium in Malabar at 3 p.m. Following that clash will be San Juan North taking on El Dorado East at 5 p.m. Matches in the Tobago and Central Zones kick off on Saturday. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
More news after the break. Scores of young people from Toco Sangre Grande accepted the opportunity to become trainees in the on-the-job training OJT in agriculture program. The curriculum is intended to improve the livelihood of persons in the community.
Dr. the Honorable Rupert Griffith, Minister of Science and Technology, says Toco Sangre Grande is one of the leading constituencies in agriculture, and therefore it is fitting to have an OJT training program in food security and production.
We will continue to be one of the lead areas in agriculture, and I am convinced now and I'm confident that with the quality of trainees that we have attracted here today, we are going to continue to grow from strength to strength in agriculture in Toco Sangre Grande.
Dr. Rupert Griffith adds that government fundamentally believes in people and also believes in strong investments in training for people.
We have had over 1,000 applications. In 4 months, when the program started, we have had over 1,000 applications, and we have already placed 400 plus people on jobs. So I think Mr. Suku and the OJT program deserves a round of applause.
The government believes in programs such as this and reflects a commitment to the importance of communities in the economic development and transformation of our society.
We have a large number of trainees, and I understand Tuesday we will have another cohort of OJT trainees in agriculture. And I had shared with my colleague, the Minister of Tertiary Education and Skills Training, that one of the weaknesses we've had in Toco Sangre Grande is exposure to tertiary education. And I think all of you know by now, in collaboration with Mr. Karim's ministry, we have been able to bring COSTAT to Sangre Grande. It was open January this year, and I want to tell you, once the registration started, we had full registration within the first month of the institution. But we're not going to stop there, because now that we have a lot of trainees in agriculture, I am convinced that many of you can rise to higher heights.
The minister says he believes the trainees can rise above higher heights and will be lobbying for a degree or certificate program in agriculture to be set up in Sangre Grande.
A nation that can feed itself is a secure nation. Because you could have any number of shortcomings, but if you have a shortcoming of food, we all know the history is replete with what happened as far as food shortages, not in Trinidad, but in many countries around the world. There's riots, murder, mayhem. So a very strong agriculture industry in Trinidad and Tobago would give us that sense of security.
Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Camuto Manzanilla member for Parliament Colin Partap says he's committed to serving the people. MP Partap was out at a function in his constituency to endorse on-the-job training employment in the agriculture sector.
Camuto Manzanilla MP says the majority of his time would be visiting and looking at the problems of his constituency and making the necessary recommendations to have these problems solved. Mr. Colin Partap says he now has more time to attend to the cries of his constituents.
You know, without the luxury of the police anymore, usually have to leave a lot earlier to get to these events. So once again, my sincerest apologies to my colleagues at the head table and to you all today.
The MP says he promised to have agriculture developed this eastern constituency, which he believes has the potential to become the major supplier of the country.
We are trying to get agriculture back on the front burner. As he spoke earlier, he said food security is key, and no one knows that better than us. You know, farming has to become an industry where people would want to go into, and go into not because, you know, my father did it, my grandfather did it, go into it because it is profitable.
Mr. Partap underscored that food production will provide job opportunities, growth of business, and food security.
I know I have an initiative that's, now I will have a lot more time to push it through, starting up the fish farming in Plumita. And also I'll be speaking with the minister to start back up. I know the rice program is going to kick off pretty soon. So we have a lot of programs coming in. But to you, the trainees, I want to tell you, take this training. Training and education is something that can never be taken away from you. Once you leave here, you have a skill, and that skill will help you later on to gain employment, or if you want to go off on your own, to start your own, you know, agricultural programs.
He commended Tertiary Education Minister Fazal Karim and Food Production Minister Devant Maraj for launching the programs for the people of the constituencies of Camuto Manzanilla and Toco Sangre Grande.
Agriculture is going to be key in these two constituencies, and Dr. Griffith and I are going to make sure that you all will be reaping the benefits. So with those few words, I'd like to thank you, wish you all the success that's possible, and, you know, take the training to heart.
The MP says the OJT 2-year program will make a mark in agriculture, and Trinidad and Tobago will once again enjoy low food prices and have a sustainable food supply. He spoke during the Ministry of Tertiary Education's launch of an OJT training program in agriculture at Sangre Grande Regional Corporation, Ramdas Street, Sangre Grande. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.